Today is the one-year anniversary of the Supreme Court decision in what's now simply known as Citizens United. Now, this is the ruling that said that it was unconstitutional in any way to limit the amount of money that corporations can spend in our elections. And in 2011, a midterm election year, it instantly became obvious the impact that this ruling had. Spending by outside groups jumped to $294.2 million. That's nearly a fourfold increase from the last midterms in 2006. In 80% of congressional races, the candidate who benefited the most from outside spending was the one who won the race. And because so many independent groups aren't required to disclose their donors, barely a third of those groups did actually report on who gave them money. So 1 year later, what do we have to say? Well, here to discuss it with me is Paul Blumenthal, senior writer at the Sunlight Foundation, and Seton Motley, president of Less Government. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Now, do you think that this ruling could have come at a more perfect time? Because it was the ruling came in 2011, which happened to be a midterm election year, and that really let us see the impact that it had. I mean, 4 times the spending that we saw in the last midterm election. That's not a small feat.
Well, it's certainly not a small feat, and what's especially worrying about it is the increase in the lack of disclosure. I mean, you have so many groups coming in and spending tens of millions of dollars in our elections, and we really don't know where that money is coming from. And it really goes against a lot of the principles that we have in this country towards transparency, and even against the ruling, the Citizens United ruling that Anthony Kennedy wrote, where he affirmed that transparency and disclosure are very important for our democracy.
I'm happy you mentioned that, because that's true. In the opinion for the majority, he thought that if anything could save the fact that there might be a huge flow of cash into this, it's that, you know, the people would now be enabled to make wise judgments when they go to vote, because everything would be transparent and disclosed. And yet we saw the exact opposite thing happen. So how is it that we can defend Citizens United if we have no idea where the money is coming from?
The only better thing that could have happened with Citizens United if it happened sooner. I do not see is this enamel with transparency with regard to the First Amendment being practiced. The last person I want to be responsible to reporting to on my practicing my First Amendment rights is the government, which is from whom I'm being protected with regard to my First Amendment rights. Money is speech. Money isn't groceries, you might say, but try leaving Safeway with groceries without some. Money is speech, money is groceries, money is everything. Money is speech, and therefore spending on political races is perfectly justified, and you can call for transparency if you like, but I don't want to have to report to the government before engaging in my First Amendment rights.
But if money is speech, if money is a way of saying something, then why don't you tell people who you are if you're putting your money into an election or into a campaign?
Well, I think that that's definitely the issue here, is that, you know, money may be speech, and we've had numerous Supreme Court rulings that say that. But Supreme Court rulings have also affirmed the need for transparency in these areas. I mean, you have Antonin Scalia, no, you know, liberal lion at all, stating that we need transparency in elections, and that, you know, if you want to play in the political arena, you might as well stand up and state what you're doing.
But why, you know, if a rival green bean company wants to run an ad against a green bean, they don't have to disclose who they are. Why do we only have to disclose and be transparent when it comes to the most important thing going on in the air every 2 years, every 4 years? And that's political speech.
You just called it the most important thing going on, so why wouldn't it be that case that we have to disclose it?
I don't, you know, Scalia is wrong on this, because I don't care what the Supreme Court's ruled, I care what the Constitution says. And the Constitution does not have a transparency clause in the First Amendment.
Well, the Constitution may not have a transparency clause, but the Supreme Court, which interprets the Constitution, has
they've interpreted all kinds of things. What is it, an emanation from the penumbra of the First Amendment? I mean, they came up with a privacy clause, which is totally made up, and then they came up with an emanation from a penumbra of the privacy clause, which was made up out of whole cloth. And the transparency penumbra is made up too. I'd rather go by the text of the Constitution and not whatever 9 guys in robes decide.
Well, I mean, if the transparency clause is made up, we could go back and close the doors of the Senate. We could stop releasing information from Congress to the public. We could stop letting people know about
These are the
bills.
elected officials. I want transparency from the elected officials, not to the elected officials.
Well, let me ask you a personal question, right? I mean, voting is something that's your right as a citizen of the United States, and it's something that I enjoy. I'm sure that both of you enjoy it as well. But do you care if other people, let's say from Iran, from North Korea, I mean, who knows, if there are foreign donors that are influencing your elections here at home?
Barack Obama did quite well in fundraising overseas.
That doesn't hurt you?
No, Barack Obama did quite well in fundraising overseas in 2008.
But it's not a who did what. It's legal now.
It's not legal.
It's being done thanks to the loopholes after
That's fine, but there's a difference between what's legal and what's illegal and reporting it. You can certainly track the transactions coming in from overseas. That's not the same thing as reporting every dollar you get from every domestic donor and going to the government and saying, may we please engage in our First Amendment rights? Here's our list of people who have given us money. Can we please have money? Can we please have your permission to engage in our First Amendment rights?
Do you think this is about the government knowing who gave what, or this is about other voters knowing who
I think this is about
elections?
citizens knowing who gave what and who is trying to influence elections, influence lawmakers, and influence citizens as well.
And see, this is a fundamental problem with people on the left. They view the average American as sheep. They're not sheep. They know what's going on. They figure it out. Barack Obama's been woefully untransparent, and that's what gave birth to the Tea Party, in part, was the fact that not only was he shoving laws down the American people's throats that they didn't want, but he was being closed up about it. If you'll recall, during the process, they locked the Republicans out of a health care hearing meeting. They moved the meeting without telling the Republicans. That wasn't transparent. Remember, Obama ran on a promise of, we're going to have all the hearings for health care on C-SPAN. And then Brian Lamb from C-SPAN had to write a letter saying, would you please put him on the air? I want transparency from the government. I don't want to report to the government for my First Amendment rights.
All right, well, how about the fact that some people out there are now proposing a constitutional amendment? We have seen a few lawmakers talk about this idea to make it that corporations cannot be, counted as a person, as an individual. Do you think that that would have any chance of flying, of passing?
Well, that's the way to fix it. If you want to amend the Constitution, amend the Constitution. If they want to go that route, fine. I just don't think it'll pass.
Do you think, for me it's a little frustrating because we had the Republicans who, in fact, completely blocked this Disclose Act that some people brought up, which after the Citizens United ruling said, okay, it's clearly not being done the way with the Supreme Court, wanted it to happen, so let's have this bill that would force people to disclose it. And here, Republicans, what pisses me off is they're like, no, because they just value the rights of corporations so much. But then when it comes to actual human beings, things like the DREAM Act, they completely block that. Why do they care about corporations more than people?
Because corporations are here legally and illegal aliens are not.
But they're human beings. How far does it go? I mean, currently, yesterday, the Supreme Court, was hearing arguments in a case where AT&T, a corporation, wants you to feel so bad for it because it has feelings, too. It can be embarrassed, too, just like people. I feel like this is going to be a non-stop road.
You can't incessantly beat corporations over the head and shoulders and then act surprised when they get up and leave and go take their jobs overseas. So, yes, AT&T has rights, just like Verizon has rights.
But does AT&T have feelings? Does AT&T get embarrassed?
A corporation...
Should I care if it has feelings?
I mean, I think that what you're seeing already in that hearing is that most of the justices aren't terribly interested in AT&T's case. They're trying to claim that they have personal privacy rights, which, while they may be a corporate person, they don't necessarily have personal privacy rights, which is what you're seeing, John Roberts is very skeptical of this, as is Antonin Scalia and more of the liberal justices as well.
Well, we'll see where it ends up. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for joining us. It is 1 year after Citizens United. If anything, I think that it proved that elections in this country can be bought, and I personally just want to know who's buying them. Thanks.
Bunny chases ideas, not the other way around.